We've got a really good opportunity here with the time that we have to really get involved in the underlying concepts for why you play golf, what you want to achieve, and how you're going to achieve it. We're going to take a look back through history, going right back to the early days of golf, and really going a bit of a journey with how the golf swing as a whole has just changed so much from the days of Bobby Jones and Ben Hogan through the Faldo Ledbetter years, which is obviously my era, and then coming into the players now, what the guys and girls are doing on tour is just so different to what they did 50, 60 years ago in respect to how they use the club face, what concepts they're using, and I'm just going to bring you up to speed really with where it's all at. Now, I'm going to be using examples of different players. I'm going to use as much evidence as I can to show you and back things up, and please don't tell me I don't think I'm just going to teach you one way to swing the club, because that's not true. There's lots of different ways to swing the club, but there's definitely ways that can make it more efficient, a bit more repeatable, and ultimately give you what everybody wants, which kind of leads me into the main theme for today's video, which is, why do we play golf? What do we want out of it? And how are we going to get it? And I think that, going to the why, lots of different reasons why people potentially play golf. Maybe it's sociable, you can get outside, you get the fresh air, and you can go on holiday and all the rest of it, but I think when you bring all it all back, you play golf because of that unbelievable feeling you get when you absolutely rip it off the tee, you hit it straight down the middle of the fairway, right out the centre of the face. Nothing feels better than that. Or you've got a nice crisp lie on a nice bit of turf, and you hit the ball, take a divot, flies onto the green, one stop, lands, or you got a little chip shot around the green and you nip it and loads of spin, or you hit a putt straight out the middle of the face and it goes in. It's that release, it's that kind of chemical release when you hit that ball, the feeling you get, that's why you play. If you wanted to be sociable, you could do other things. If you wanted to do other things outside, you could do other things. So whilst it's all part of it, and I think that's where golf is a phenomenal game, we can go on holiday, as I say, we've got a massively social part of it, but you play it really because of that feeling you get when you hit the middle and you do what you want to do. So the next question would be, what do you want as a golfer? And I think that if you lined up 10 handicap players, club players, good players, what do you want? And I think people might go around, well, I want a bit more distance, maybe I want to be a little bit straighter. But really it comes down to that word that a lot of people are scared of using, which is consistency. We want to be more consistent, but what does that really mean? We want to have more consistency within the quality of the strike, definitely, and we want more consistency within our direction, how we can flight that ball to keep it, in the game. So as we go through this journey together, we're going to really look and find how we can achieve that. How do we get consistency in the strike? How do we get consistency in the direction of the flight without having to hit a million balls? And I think this sort of brings me to one of the big questions in golf is, why is it so hard to be consistent? Why can you spend 20 or 30 years hitting balls every single day, but you don't particularly get any more consistent? And I think that you've got to look at the bigger question there and say, well, how was it taught? What's the foundations of the golf swing and how the club face is being used, and how is that different now? Is it different now? And, I think overwhelmingly most golfers that struggle, there's a high percentage of players which slice the ball, right? You get that ball that starts relatively straight but then just fades off, a little bit weak to the right, a bit too high, or you get the one that pulls and goes straight to the left. Or, you struggle with the hook, where you can actually get the ball to turn over, but then of course, it's a little bit too variable, it starts fairly straight and then draws, or it's a little bit too much. So you've really got probably 60 to 70%, or maybe more than that, 70 to 80% of golfers struggle with the slice, which is a massively high proportion of the amount of players that play. So that's a question, why do so many people slice the ball? And then why arguably do the better players, to use that loosely, hook the ball? That's got to be a question that needs to be answered, and we can certainly answer that. And then, why now are players able to hit the ball so much further and straighter and more consistently? And yes, technology is going to play a huge part in that, but there's something bigger which has changed, which is how they're using the club face, and also how they're managing the weight of the club. And I think that's a big oversight in many people's understanding of how the golf swing works. You know, this golf club, which I'm just going to grab here, you know, this piece of metal at the end of the stick is really heavy, and you're trying to swing that round your body on a tilted angle. You know, if it was like more of a horizontal swing, like a baseball swing, it'd be a little bit easier to keep it all in one motion. But obviously this is on a tilt, your body's on a tilt, the club's on a tilt. So because of that weight in the head and the biggest force in the universe, gravity, those things are really battling. And that's why you can look down the driving range and you can see a million different ways that people get the club back to the ball. You know, it looks like there's some people out there which are killing snakes in a phone box. The club's going all over the place. And there's other players which you look, it just looks so simple. It's just swinging up and it's swinging down. And I think that the club head weight and how you manage that is a huge part of it. And the second part is the club face itself and the orientation of that. You know, I think that there's certainly lots of different ways that this club can be swung, and traditionally there was a lot more of this kind of position where you're trying to almost rotate the face into a toe up place, which was deemed to be square, and then anything more than that was deemed to be open, and anything less than that was deemed to be closed. Now, I'm not going to get too much into that today. That's where we're going to go tomorrow. But even those words are interesting, you know. So people referring it to as an open face. What does that really mean? What's it open to? What is a square face? You know, what's it square to? What's a shut face? Things like inside, outside, over the top. All these different things. You know, people use these kind of loosely without really understanding what they mean. And I think we're going to shed some light on all these things. So all the things you've heard over the years, hopefully we can shed some light on this. And so, as I say, I think what we want to do is really get a handle on how you can swing this weighted head round your body consistently, and how you can orientate the face in such a way that it doesn't require so much timing through the shot in order to get the ball to where you want it to go. So going back to that original feeling of what we had, and most of us were taught, which was to get that toe up. Now, that by definition means that we're going to have to roll the face to be able to get the ball to go where we want it. So you can see that I'm working this club face and I'm opening the face up essentially, and I will expand on that tomorrow. Now, if I was to leave the face like this and just rotate my body, can you see the club face is still going to be pointing to the right? The only way that I can actually get this club face to square to my start line is to either pull the path to the left, which means my club face may square to target, but it's very open to path. So of course the ball will start where the face points primarily, and then because the path's going to the left, it tilts the ball, tilts the axis of the ball, it's going to start relatively straight and it's going to move away. So the only way I can not do that is to roll the face into a square position, but of course if I roll that a little bit too much, my club face is now going to be a little bit closed to my path. The ball is going to start wherever the face points, and then the ball is going to be tilted to the left and it's going to spin off to the left. So that's why you've got so many players that will open this face up without realising it, because it's what they're told to do. You get to the top, which I'll expand on later, and you'll either pull across to square it, starts it straight, drifts off to the right, or you'll drop it down inside, and then you'll roll the face to hopefully a square position and hit it straight, or you'll over roll it and it's going to hook off to the left. So we're going to shed some light on all of that, and the first few videos that I'm going to take you through are very much going to be conceptual, because until you've got a real cast iron concept with what you're trying to do, it's almost pointless going to hit balls, because you're just going to kind of do it. I don't want to say the word ignorance is bliss, but I think I've been there, and when it stops working, it's incredibly difficult to find your way back. So if you can have a cast iron concept for how and what you're trying to do with the club, and then you've got various different ways of doing that more consistently, you're going to reap the benefits and get some huge gains. So tomorrow we're going to go through some history. We're going to look at players like Bobby Jones, Ben Hogan. We're going to go through the Faldo years with Ledbetter, you know, and talk about how the coaching and I as a coach was coached to coach you guys, and why that's not necessarily the best thing to be doing right now. And then we're going to look more into the future look at players like Dustin Johnson. We're going to look at players like Brooks Koepka, and we're going to look at evidence all over the place. We've got the LPGA Tour players. Some of these ladies are doing phenomenal things with the golf club, and there's huge consistencies with what they are doing to what was taught yesteryear, which is completely different to what they were doing then. So what I can take you through now is going from what was taught before, which is not necessarily wrong. It's definitely a way to do it, but if you're on board and want to try and be more consistent, more powerful, and have to practice less, then this is definitely going to be the way forward. So watch this again, maybe a couple of times. Tomorrow I'm going to shed some light then on how we can do this and give you some exercises related to it. Okay, have a great evening, and I'll see you tomorrow.